Okay, as it is 5:30, we'll go ahead and open the meeting. This is the committee to review town council rules and town code. And the date of the meeting is September 2024, and here's Chris Clark, so I'm going to turn it over to her. Because I've just announced the name of the meeting and the date. I haven't done anything other than that.
And thank you, professionals, for being here. And Larry, too. So this meeting is being recorded and will be rebroadcast in the Town of Barnstable Government Access Channel. Okay. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, please make their presence known. This meeting will be played via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel video on demand archives on the Town of Barnstable website. That's listed. Thank you, Cindy.
Sure. Councilors, Burdick.
Present.
Clark.
Here.
Lutke. Here. Tamish.
Here.
Turkelson. You have quorum.
And thank you for all your hard work. I've been watching these meetings over and over again because I don't get through the whole meeting and I'm like, oh yeah, good point. So I guess that, how do you want to handle this? Yes, I'm sorry. Public comment. Larry, do you have something to add?
Not today, but maybe something will come up in our last course.
And nobody else.
We have nobody on public comment yet.
Thank you.
So if it makes sense to you, I could just take you where we left off at the last meeting, show you what's been added, what's been changed,
Did a lot of work.
and then turn it back over to you guys.
That sounds good, because we've done it, so we left off as a substantial rewrite. So it'd be really good to review that,
And I like
About
that you
the,
provided us that.
the committees and the liaisons and that kind of stuff. It's very confusing.
The red lines were just getting to a point where
Yeah.
I was going cross-eyed.
I hear you.
So just starting on page 1, the only change I think we made after the last meeting was in the very first paragraph, amending or repealing these rules shall require, I think everyone chose a majority vote of the full council as opposed to anything higher than that. So that's what we put in there. Then I think where we then left off sort of for real was the committees. So we added page numbers this time too, so you can actually, yeah. That's not us. That's not us. Those are the minutes, that's not us. But that is incorrect. Oh yeah, did you want to do your minutes?
That's still in the.
That's later, okay. Okay, so if you start at rule 10, and I think we had talked about this, we just tried to make it reflect what actually happens, which is that the communications staff records the council meetings. We said shall make best efforts to report on video all public sessions, only because in case something does go wrong, you know, we don't want there to be a hard and fast rule, but obviously they do that, and they will continue to do that. So we just updated that language to make clear what actually happens. And then the town council administrator, which is Cindy, shall be the clerk of town council committee meetings, and then the rest of the stuff came out. If there are no questions on rule 10, then rule 11, 11A, and 11B, Allison reworked how they were organized based on the discussion that we had at the last meeting. So the first rule 11 is now committees of the council and references just committees in general. And I'll point out the one well, the couple of changes that I made to what she did, which was, we had added at the bottom of page 11, the president and vice president of the council shall not serve as a chair or vice chair of any committee of the council. So we just added that.
I know you know I'm picky, but if you have in some places, vice president with a dash, and at least in one case it was with a dash, not a dash. So I'll find it eventually, but
You can point it out.
Just
I mean,
make it
when we're
consistent.
actually done with this, we'll clean it up.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, we'll
okay.
go through it, but for now, yeah, if you know where that is, that's fine.
I don't care which way.
I would not say vice president, so we'll fix that. So we just added chair or vice chair, and then in the next, top of the next page, and Cindy, you should look at this as well. We had looked at the sentence that said all committees of the town council shall keep records of proceedings, and a copy of said records shall be filed with the town clerk. It said, originally it said shall be filed with the town clerk and the council administrator within 30 days following each meeting. But the council administrator is the clerk of the committees of the council. So I just changed it, shall be filed with the town clerk by the council administrator, because presumably she will have those records. Does that make sense to you, Cindy? Okay. All right. So that's all we did there. Well, I don't know. Allison, did you want to talk about anything else that you did in that paragraph? Sorry.
No, I had a question about the first sentence.
Okay.
About it says, after organization of the council, the president, subject to approval by the full council, may appoint members. What does subject to approval by the full council mean?
I don't know why the word full is in there, so it should be subject to approval by the council, may appoint members to stand.
What approval? I
So it
understand.
means-
The president either has the power to do that or doesn't. Why are we approving?
So there's a distinction that's made between standing committees of the council and ad hoc committees. This is an ad hoc committee, it's going for a short period of time. The standing committees are standing committees. So, and this is something that was in there previously, but which I think makes sense, is that the president appoints the members of standing committees, and those appointments are subject to approval by the council. For the ad hoc committees, the council creates the committees, but then the president appoints the members. That's the distinction between the two as it was previously drafted, and which I think makes some sense. But that's not a change that we made. But I will take out the full council and just say approval by the council, because I don't think that adds anything.
Okay.
So that was that. Rule 11A is really just focused on ad hoc committees. And as I just said, the council, and this is set forth in the town code as well. And this is how we did for these ad hoc committees. The council by vote creates and then it's the president of the council who actually designates the members. And then we added language about the chair of the ad hoc committee, and we added, I think, we added it, yeah, at the discretion of the committee, a vice chair may be selected by vote of the committee. That was something you had asked for at the last meeting. But when the chair's not here, we know who to go to. The rest of this, I think, was previously we put in the period of existence shall commence from the date of the first meeting of the committee, so that you don't run out of time if it takes a little time to get organized. And I think when we created these committees, we gave an actual deadline. I think going forward, we'd be better off to say the committee shall exist for 3 months or 4 months, or pick a period of time so that it starts at your first meeting and the ramp up time doesn't detract from that.
That makes sense.
So I didn't put in the months in here, but we did put in the period of existence shall commence from the date of the first meeting of the committee. And then when we actually create more committees, we will if one of us remembers, we'll do it that way. And then I added the next sentence, which is, and you may want to look at it and give some more thought to it. At the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about too many committees, ad hoc committees existing at the same time, which creates a burden on Cindy because she's the support for all of the committees. And what was suggested is that there should be no more than two. And then I added language saying, that's sort of the general rule, but the council can by vote say they don't do more than two. So that's what that language at the end of that first paragraph is meant to do, that I can obviously change it in any way that you all would like me to.
I like that. I know we had a discussion. I know, Craig, you were interested in that language.
Yeah,
You had thought we shouldn't have any restrictions. But it just, I thought it was good to have them.
oh, I think that
It
there's
just,
only so many that you can effectively
I think we're
have.
already overwhelmed right now
Right.
and not being effective, so.
But for example, this committee, I mean, maybe it should be a standing committee that its charge is to review the rules once a year or something. Something like
Yeah.
that, instead of having it as an ad hoc
Right.
committee. But that's something we can look at another time.
Yeah.
Necessarily do that.
I mean, look at this, look at Amherst. I mean, it's amended every year,
Right.
so that may,
I looked at the rules when I first got here and I thought, oh, I should clean that up. And now we are.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that way bigger. But no, I think a limit of 4 in effect would be a limit of 4. Considerably more than enough, because they should be timed. If you're not
if
going
they're
to,
ad hoc.
if they're ad hoc,
Standing, yeah,
right.
this is ad hoc.
If they have work that is going to be continuing over a period of time, greater than say a year, 6 months, whatever you pick, then they should be made a standing committee of the, if it's something that's going to be perpetuity.
Oh, I agree.
We're just trying to get things organized and there are a lot of different issues in town.
Yeah, no, I like it much better. I think this is good. It gives some boundaries.
And I wrote it in existence and meeting during any given period, because in theory, you could take a vote creating 4 committees and stagger it so that, the first 2 complete their work by a certain date, and then the next 2 don't start until, 6 months later or something, if that's what you want me to do. So, so that was intended to address that comment. I think this is, some of this looks redlined because we move stuff around, not necessarily because it's new language.
When I rearranged it, the only new language I added was, for instance, both. It said both ad hoc and standing. It said separately that the president and vice president of the council shall not serve as chair. So I combined that in the general,
Right.
in that. That's the only new writing that I did. Otherwise, it's just a moving around and deleting some repetition.
So the Rule 11B standing committees is now relatively short.
Yeah,
Because a lot of this was ad hoc.
Which makes it much easier to read.
Yeah, and then again, we can all take a look at some point at the clean version and we can do cleanup and we can just make sure that we didn't miss anything. It was hard at some point with all the red lines. So Rule 11C was, I believe, something that I think I added this.
Yes.
Because I would routinely get questions from various councilors about the role of the council liaison, and this does come from the town code, so that's why it says in accordance with section 241-8 of the town code. That's where you find this, and it kind of talks about the role of the council liaison, which is really to establish some type of reporting relationship with the chair of the committee that they're a liaison to, so that they can then report back to the council. And this was also intended to clarify that the council liaisons are not members of the committees that they're liaisons to. They don't vote with them, they don't deliberate with them, they're in the audience like everybody else.
I have a question.
Yep.
How do you envision an executive session emerging from one of these committees? I'm trying to think of what is it, 5 steps or?
Well, what do you mean, what would I think would be
Town council would go into executive session, but
any committee can go into executive session as long as it is for a reason that is permitted by the open meeting law. So without trying to guess what every committee might possibly want to talk about, depending on what the purview is of the committee and whether it has to fall within what the law permits. If it doesn't, you can't just go into executive session.
I was just trying to envision it. I guess if there was like an employee issue, then that might flag it.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that some of the committees could potentially, it doesn't mean it would happen very often. It doesn't mean, it would happen at all, but it could, as long as you're complying with the law and you're going into exec for a permitted purpose. That's the only way you can do that.
Now, back to those liaisons. Can they ask a comment?
I think during the meeting, the liaisons should be in the same position as a member of the public in terms of how they interact.
So they could make a public comment.
I don't see why not. I don't see why not.
Because I've been in, a liaison to committee, I've made comments, and other town councilors have come to that committee and made public comments. I know that's a slightly different thing, but if that's the nature of it, if you act as a member of the public, so to speak, so you could.
Yeah, I
make a
think so.
Public comment.
I think so. I think the main point I wanted to make is that the liaisons are not like one more member of the committee.
Correct.
You're not.
And what is the, and I don't know which town or city it was, specifically addressed that, and said that the liaison shall sit in the public section, not, for example, on the dais with the
They should,
committee.
yeah, you should not be on the dais with the committee because it creates the appearance that you're part of the committee.
Well,
and
should we
you're
put
not.
that in there? Because that I think really clarifies it. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that clarifies the role for everyone. Right now, it's a little bit nebulous.
Okay, so we have the last sentence, shall not participate in the deliberations,
How was
meaning
that in?
the discussions.
I'll say that.
Was it in Amherst or?
If there's a sentence you like.
I know, that would be nice to have that.
Why don't you just write, council shall attend the meeting with a member of the public? Or something like that.
Yeah, I'll find it out.
Yeah.
But I think that would be very helpful to have that in there.
There's
To
a
really clarify that role.
whole list of rules in Amherst on page 28. It's rule 10.8. It might be in there because there's A through K on just liaisons there. Yeah, liaison shall sit with the public.
Yeah, so I think that right there is very, it clarifies it, yeah.
So it's really, you sit with the public and you participate in the same manner and to the same extent as the public.
Although they say liaison shall not comment during public comment.
I guess that's up to you. If you want to impose that rule.
Most of the time when I'm at a meeting, I'm asked a question.
And that's a little weird too. I
Open
mean,
space.
boards are not really having dialogues with.
Well, it does say, they have in here, Chris, what you're saying too. It says liaisons shall identify themselves as liaisons prior to first instance of speaking at each meeting. When recognized by the chair, liaisons may ask questions and make comments during discussion. And then they say they're not supposed to go during public comment. So I like that language. I really like that because
10.8.
10.8B, I think is good.
Okay.
And then the seating thing is good too, B and F, maybe if we took those.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, I
I'm
think
sorry,
we're
you
sitting
two aren't seeing what we're seeing. Do you want to?
Okay, the only thing that,
Is
by
that the-
sitting with the public, you're not near a microphone. If there's gonna be any discussion.
Well, I think several sections there are really
It's
appropriate.
very good, it's just very clear. I just want clarity.
And I think H, liaisons are not required to attend all the meetings, but should be familiar with the material provided. Maintain contact with the other body's chairs.
The only thing that seems weird to me is if you say you can't participate during public comment, and then you have other counselors who show up and participate during public
That's what I'm
comment.
saying, that's
It's-
happened. here.
Right, but it's a little weird that they can and then you can't.
That's what I'm saying, but
So I
we
don't
didn't
love
have any
that.
rules, but so I'm saying we need to kind of think of that as we write these, because
But
it
I guess what I'm
does.
saying is I wouldn't say
Put that
that you
in there.
couldn't speak during public.
Yeah, I don't
comment.
like that. I like
Yeah.
the way they
Okay.
put it, I like the, what was it? The whatever.
Well, B, liaisons shall identify themselves prior to the first meeting.
Yeah, I really like
And
that one.
when recognized by the chair, liaisons may ask questions and make comments during discussion. Yeah, I don't know why they would recognize it.
The code we have in here shall not participate in the deliberations or votes, and deliberations is very broadly defined. It's really just, the members of the board talking to each other about whatever is under their purview. So I'm a little uncomfortable. I don't mind the asking questions. I'm a little uncomfortable with sort of the making comments outside of the public comment, because you're starting to cross the line into the role of the board, which is to be having those discussions.
I don't know, what kind of comments have you or
For the
questions?
Open Space Committee, which was the land
Questions
acquisition,
are different.
they had report from Counselor Liaison on the agenda,
Mhm.
as an agenda item. So it's more like the,
So you're giving them an update
yes,
as opposed, I always thought it was, you go to the committee meetings and you update
Give
the
the
council.
I think a liaison looks both ways.
But I think it goes both ways. I remember going to some of the housing meetings and just sitting in and hearing a discussion going on where if they listened to the town council meeting, they would know that entire discussion was fruitless because it was going against what had just been talked about. So that's where I see the liaison could help that, this discussion is probably not very relevant because this is what's going on. So that's why I appreciate what Chris is saying. So, I mean, I'd really like to work on this a bit. We're just leaving it too open just because I know there have been some issues with this, so I'd like to spend a little time to clarify it.
Okay, we can take another look.
Because
If we think
deliberations,
Amherst
that's
is a
very,
good model.
Open, but I think they probably learned from experience that you need these guidelines.
Hmm. But maybe the reporting, as you're saying, sort of providing some report or
Update on what's been happening or
at the council.
at the council or
Well, so
town management.
this language makes it sound as if you wouldn't necessarily it wouldn't be necessary for a liaison to attend a meeting in order to fulfill the role of the liaison as imagined in the rules, right? So you would simply be, rather than 12 counselors calling up the chair of whatever committee and saying, hey, guys, what's going on over there? The role is more just to be the person, the supervisory person, if you would, who is going to say, okay, every month or after your meeting, I would like for you to provide for me, if possible, to the chair, an update on your activities.
I guess I would say two things. In my mind, at least, to me, it was sort of a given that you would actually attend the meeting. So I wasn't suggesting that liaison not attend.
Right.
And I'm sort of reacting to the use of the word supervisory.
Well, yes, maybe not supervisory. The liaison is by definition, I guess, not supervisory.
But I can see where he's interpreting based on this paragraph. If I knew nothing coming into it, I could see his interpretation.
And maybe we start with shall attend the meetings of the committees to which they're a liaison. Seems weird that you would be reporting back to the council about things that you've never attended or heard or witnessed or.
Well, I
Years
just
ago.
say from like an executive standpoint, not a, I can't think of the appropriate word. You're the lawyer, you should come up with the word.
Well, I hear what you're saying.
No, that it's more of, it's like an executive summary of the
Mhm.
activities of the committee or commission.
And yet, you know, at a council meeting, we don't want 43 reports every month.
Right, and so like, is it to report on the minute details of the meeting and what the demeanor and what transpired and all of that? Or is the liaison's role not more to kind of correlate or to put together the information relative to what is occurring there at this board, committee, or commission, and then have it in a package that you can then hand off to the council and say, or in your brief presentation. So I guess what I mean to say is, I guess overall is, so if you have a situation where they've had to come up with all these rules, these governing rules for people misbehaving, and that would be my interpretation, that there was some misbehavior or some whatever. And if we have that also, I don't know if we do, but if we feel as if the line is being crossed, does it not make sense then to have it be less direct, the involvement, interaction be less direct and not supervisory, but executive?
See, I don't really think of it as sort of a misbehaving thing. I think of it as an information flow.
Right.
You know,
But I mean, like
this committee is meeting, they're talking about all these things, and, you know, you're all busy, you're all have a million things that you're doing, so you don't really know, like, what the key issues are that are being discussed by a particular committee, but the liaison does.
Well, yeah, I understand that. What I mean to say is,
I really don't think of it as oversight.
trying to govern what the individual does as a liaison at the meeting implies that there are boundaries that need to be set. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And is that
yeah.
because we believe that these boundaries are not there is no boundary now, and that that's somehow inappropriate to the function of this committee, and then the council?
I mean, to be honest, I'm not sure what goes on at the meetings with respect to liaisons, because I'm not
Well, I guess
watching, I'm
that's
not
what I'm
watching all the
asking.
meetings. But the language I did put in here was intended to address stuff that has been brought to my attention, where people have said, well, you know, can we do this as liaison? Or I know, you know, some councilors are actually deliberating with the body or blah, blah, blah. And my answer was like, no, they shouldn't be doing that. So I put language in here intended to address things that have been raised
Right.
to me. But if there's more that we should add to better explain what we think the role is and how it should work, you know, that's fine. I mean, I'm open to however you think it ought to read. I don't want to over structure it.
Exactly. That's what
you
I'm
know?
That's why I'm saying, so is to the extent to which they have codified what a person should do. Or
Yeah, they seem to
liaison
have a
should do.
lot in that section. I don't think we need that much.
I agree.
But I think, I mean, if I were the town council president or whatever, I would just want to have it be much more of a, okay, chair of this committee, please prepare for me, you know, not just the minutes, but a brief for this committee's activities during this time period, that then I can either give to Cindy or give to the president or read to the council. And that would be as much as I would need. I just sit there and watch every meeting. That's beside the point. But
I think it's more an opportunity to convey to the council significant changes.
right,
Not-
which you
not
could do with a piece of paper that
Not
has 10
a
bullet
repetition of
points.
minutes, but just
Right.
the Open Space Committee will be having a fall walking weekend. It's an
Right.
initiative taken by the committee. And various members have collected.
Right, but you would
walking-
establish as you discuss and define an appropriate reporting relationship. Should there not maybe be a appropriate reporting relationship that is defined rather than being
You
left
mean
to
for all
the,
committees?
yeah, rather than being left to the individuals, and then you tack on 12 rules and say, you establish your reporting, appropriate reporting relationship
Mhm.
in light of these 12 rules, which are right here. So attend the meeting, but don't speak, but do public comment, but don't deliberate. Do you know what I mean? Like, so would it not be more direct if we said the appropriate reporting relationship for a liaison shall be?
For communication, and like Craig's word, exchange. This is an opportunity to exchange information when you see fit. When I was chair of land acquisition committee, maybe at that time it was called the Open Space Committee with Peter Landau. I had a counselor who called me and said, I don't attend to your meetings, but I watch what you're doing. He goes, and I like what you did. You know, it was just a feedback. He said, don't think I'm blowing you off. I'm work, but he said, I'm paying attention to what's going on. I appreciated that. I didn't know, I don't know, if he was put on the committee because he thought we were naughty or, you know, or what was going on, but it wasn't, how do I want to say? He didn't make a robust in-person presence, but kept in touch with the chair. I think we have to allow that, and different committees will look for different input. I think,
That's my only concern with this sort of structured report is the committees are different and it may not make sense for all of them, but I don't really know. I mean,
Yeah.
I really look to you to say, how do you think this ought to work?
well, the regulatory committees, they're very structured about what they address. They take a vote based on their training.
And with
Conservation
those
Commission.
committees, I did want to be
And
really
licensing.
clear that you're not deliberating with them. You're
With the
not, they
regulation.
might go into executive session. You're not in
Right.
there, you know.
I get that,
Yeah, but that's why, so, I don't know, I mean,
but I'm just saying that if you went, I was talking to somebody from, I believe it was Conservation Commission, and they were complimenting Charlie Bloom. He comes to every meeting and they meet every week
Mhm.
twice at night and twice during the day during the month. And I said, oh, he makes a really strong commitment, and they had never seen a counselor make that commitment before. But I don't know if he'd have anything meaningful to bring to the council unless there was gonna be a challenge to state law or something like that that was going, you know, otherwise they just.
and that's the thing too, there may not be on a regular basis reports that you would bring back, but there might be something that happens at a particular meeting where you think,
That's
hey,
my
the
point.
council ought to know about this.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think there have been cases where the counselor never attended a meeting and never called or never did anything. I've heard of that too, you know, for years and years. So I think there ought to be some expectation more than what we have here.
So do you want us to take a look at Amherst and do what we think makes sense and present that to you? Or do you want to, I guess I just want to understand how you'd like us to proceed with this one.
Well, for me, anyway, I see what you guys are saying. I think of it as more because, and as I said inaccurately before, supervisory, but executive function of a liaison. That, you know, I just think that if it's going to muddy the waters by having people being unclear or being about what their role is as a liaison, I think it'd be better to just really outline it specifically, which you could do with that, but maybe that's too long. But I would prefer to try to establish some kind of appropriate reporting relationship. Because, I don't think you need to necessarily attend every single meeting and all of that in order to be an effective liaison. I mean, I don't know if I didn't see that in there specifically.
Well, they do say that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's necessary because these are all delegations. All the boards, committees, and commissions are delegations in the authority of the council by and large, except for the Board of Health, which has statutory, whatever. But so it's more, it's a delegation. So I delegated you to do this, you posted. I'm not part of that committee, and then we'll.
I don't think we should demand that they have to attend meetings.
You could say may attend or watch committee meetings as appropriate or something like that.
You can watch it live or you can watch it on demand. I mean, it doesn't mean that
Right,
you have to be present at the time of the meeting.
right.
Well, Amherst has it down. Liaisons are not required to attend all meetings of the other body, but should be familiar with the materials provided as above and maintain contact with the other body's chair.
I like that, yeah.
All right, we'll look at Amherst.
I just think, yeah, 'cause
We'll
you guys
come
have
up with
done a great
something.
job looking at the stuff and incorporating, put something in there that, that somebody could read this and know what they're supposed to do, because there was nothing there.
Okay, yeah, there was nothing, and that's why
And this
we
is-
added this section, and we'll look at Amherst and we'll revamp it, and then you all can take another look at the language. Okay. We lost our chair. For Rule 12, I added the first sentence only because, and I've had this come up in a specific instance, but the existing sentence that is there, which follows, I interpret as meaning its two reads, because it says any council action shall be acted upon at the regular meeting succeeding that in which set of appointments were presented. So I was just sort of clarifying my understanding of what this always said. And again, the two reads is something that's purely in the rules. That's not a charter requirement. So it sounds like we've always done it that way, or we've done it that way for a long time. I know we talked about it at this committee a little bit, and I think the direction was leave it that way, but I just wanted to mention that. That's truly a rule. And that's why you can suspend the rule. Rule 13. Okay, so we changed this to vacancy in the office of president or vice president to be more specific. And then we just made it a little bit more clear how it works. And then we were asked to add language that basically said, if the vice president assumes the duties of the president, meaning that there's now a vacancy for the vice president, then there would be an election, and it would follow the same process as how you elect at, at the organizational meeting. And so we referenced Rule 1, which is what we talked about previously.
Yeah, I think that reads nicely. I think it's clear.
We can make some other changes at the last meeting, and I do think it's clear. So Rule 14, inquiries and investigations. Some of the stuff I took out, or I think that particular paragraph that I took out, I think is directly from the charter. So I just felt like it doesn't really add a whole lot to just repeat it. I have not seen this used in the time I've been here. But so I just made some minor edits and pretty much left it alone.
I would just say, as you're cleaning that up, get the gender out of there. In the second line, it says under his authority,
And the second one, oh, yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
town manager's authority.
Okay.
So an inquiry is simply that, a question requiring the town manager to answer within 60 days. Go to investigation, where the council takes an active role in question and investigation.
I think the investigation is more related to actual misconduct, whereas the inquiry is looking for more information.
So there's two separate votes. A 2/3 vote for the full council should be required in order to authorize an investigation to proceed. So once you have a 2/3 vote of the full council, the council may, by majority vote, of the full council establish a committee to hear testimony, direct evidence, etc. So it would be actually two separate votes. One to authorize the investigation, to set up.
Right, an investigation is a big deal, so that's why it's a 2/3 vote.
This is coming out of the charter, or this is,
This is in the charter. It is in the charter.
so do we need to put it here?
Well, I think this spells out a little bit more of the process.
Is this highlights from the charter then?
I have to take a look. Honestly, this is not, I did look at it when I was first playing around. So section 2.10 is fairly short. So this spells out how it would work. 2.10 says the town council may require any town officer or member of the board or commission to appear before it, give such information as it may require in relation to an office held by such person, its function and performance. 48 hours notice to that person. The town council, the next paragraph, may make investigation into the affairs of the town and into the conduct of any town agency, and for this purpose may subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, and require the production of evidence. So those are the sort of the two tiers, the inquiry and the investigation, and that's literally the heading of that section. That's all it says. So this is really fleshing out, if you're gonna do this, here's how it works.
This is
So-
for some criminal thing, 'cause, I mean, you need the police to be, I mean, this sounds like a, I don't know, kangaroo court kind of thing, actually.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it, but
I don't-
it's
this
in the
really
charter.
doesn't sound right at all.
Well,
If
it's
there's
a,
something that's this serious, then I'm gonna call the police.
What's the situation that such an
Yeah.
investigation would rise? Personnel issue?
I actually would have to look into whether and to what extent it's been used. I'm not familiar with it actually happening. In fact, that's the wrong way of saying it. It has not happened in the time that I've been here, neither one of these things. But my understanding is it's in the rules because it's in the charter. And so the rules explains if you're going to do either of these things that the charter allows, here's the process.
But
for
would
that.
any of this stand up in court? This sounds completely bogus.
Well, it depends what you're investigating. I mean, it really
Right.
depends. And I think if you were actually doing a full-blown investigation of something, and it would depend what it is. I guess I don't even want to guess because I really don't know how this has been used in the past. So to me, this is something really pretty extraordinary would have to trigger this. It's not the way we ought to be conducting business on a daily basis. We haven't been in the time that I've been here, but it's in the rules precisely because there is a section that speaks to that in the charter, and this is
But how does that charter, how does that stand a legal test? How does this stand a legal test? Why would you?
Well, the town council may make investigation into the affairs of the town and into the conduct of any town agency, and for this purpose may subpoena witnesses, administer oaths, and require the production of
That
evidence.
just doesn't, I mean, that
Yeah.
sounds illegal.
It must be, that's just general law or constitution.
Is it?
Made it in the charter.
No.
Again,
think it's
I
in
have
there. I would not
It has to
assume
go
that.
through the state house, the charter.
I would assume that there are circumstances in which this could potentially be appropriately used. I don't have a good example for you because I haven't seen it used. And again, I think it should be a very high bar for any of this to be imposed, honestly, because I don't think it's the way we all ought to be dealing with each other, that presumably you get to this point because something's going wrong. Really wrong.
I mean, if it's some sort of personnel issue, we have procedures through that mechanism. Yeah, human resources, but, I mean, and if somebody's stealing, I mean, it just, I feel like this is bizarre. I just do, that it's not something we wanna,
I don't necessarily think an investigation means, by definition, it has to be something.
Legality, town council issues.
subpoena, that's what I'm saying, that seems just,
And swearing witness.
what the heck?
It has
What
to
are
be
the,
legal or else it wouldn't be in there. I don't believe that it will be. There was a big charter convention for all the stuff that has to go on.
I don't know, can we, I'd like to verify that this
I can't
is
believe the attorney
even
general
legal.
will let it go through.
Oh, come on. You want to swear witnesses? and-
No, I'm not saying I want to. I'm saying that
Would you
it's
feel
like stare
comfortable doing
decisis.
that?
So if it's in here, I believe that there's probably a reason for it to be in there. And though it's something you would never necessarily use, it doesn't mean, it's like, which amendment is it that deals with building of troops? Is it the Fourth Amendment? It's part of the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution, but it's still there. So.
That's right, you're right. They could be in your house and all that.
Right, we
That's
would
right. They
never
could knock
imagine
on your
that.
door, they could come in.
Yeah, and just be like,
I think
this
that's
is
still in
now
there.
the barracks. It's still in the Constitution.
But I cannot, I feel very uncomfortable with this completely. I would never vote to do this, that we'd be, I mean, people have the right to remain I mean, come on. Who would be,
I know, it
this
seems
is
strange,
bizarre.
but, I mean, for me anyway, I don't feel threatened by it. I don't think it would be something.
I feel very threatened by it. think
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I don't
completely out of order.
love it, but I don't feel like I'm in a position to say, take it out because we have a charter section that speaks to this, and so this fleshes that out.
So even if it weren't in the rules, we can't just change the charter.
Well, not today.
Well, you can't. but
Well, you
could.
can, you have to take it to the voters.
You have to take, how long did it take to change the charter? Or not to say, anyway.
Well, no,
you could
certain
be forced to
aspects
do
of
that.
the
Yeah, I mean,
charter
we can
just
take a
need-
look too. I did not take a look at other towns to see what, if anything, they have. But this, again, this stems from the provision in the charter. I am not a fan of any of this, and again, I can talk to folks here to see if it, to anyone's knowledge, has ever been used.
It sounds like the Salem witch trials to me. I mean, it really does. It's bizarre that we would be doing this.
Well, I think it's probably not that different from if you looked at the legislature and they have legislative hearings on various matters. It's probably-
I guess this is a way to document a path if something is serious.
Is it a stepping stone? It's really like a fact finding. I mean, I think,
I mean, if you look at number 3, it talks about the council shall decide whether the investigation is legislative or quasi judicial in nature.
How are we equipped to do that? We're
Well, it
not
does talk
lawyers.
about you may request the services of an independent attorney qualified to conduct such an investigation, who shall be engaged for the purposes of the inquiry or investigation, subject to approval by majority of the full council. So, again, I think all of this would be highly unusual to ever invoke. I don't recommend it, but again, I'm saying that in a vacuum. And it stems from the charter, and yeah, I mean, I don't love it. I agree with you, but
I
that's
mean,
where
is
it
it
comes
for
from. It comes from the
century?
charter.
But that's century. Remember, like, what comes to mind is that representative from New York. The guy who lied on so many
Santos.
levels. and
I don't
then
think
he
it's an
was
investigation among,
among us.
Yeah, it's
It's
not-
among
it's
the
not-
staff, which seems even
well,
more
it's an
problematic.
investigation of something that's happening in the town government. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, though it may not happen, have happened here of late, or maybe never has, could you imagine a scenario where you had a town manager that was at odds with the council and chose to dig in their heels, or, you know what I mean, where you could have such a thing could happen. Do you know what I mean? Such a thing could happen where you have for lack of a better term, a rogue department or actor within the town government that you have to make a good case against to try and get rid of.
But
mean,
that
that's
would be
possible.
through human resources, and
But that,
once
I mean,
the town
if you
manager
say
serves
it
at
was
the
us versus
pleasure.
the town
I would
manager,
happily get rid of this, but the reason I didn't recommend it and all I did was go through it and do cleanup is because it's in the charter.
Maybe it has no purpose. You could strike it from the rules, but it's still gonna be a charter. I mean,
Right, and then the only issue there is if someone ever said, well, we should do an investigation, then you don't have any process set up for how you do it.
So maybe leave it for now.
I can look into and talk to some folks to see if it's ever been.
Yeah, I'd be
I
curious.
honestly don't know.
If other towns have done this or have,
In reading through all the rules, a couple, you didn't see very many of them have this. Some of them did.
what did they?
Not exactly the same process, but.
Were
talked
those,
about.
all those, were those rules or charters that we had? Those were charters?
Rules.
They weren't charters.
But it may come from their charter, it's just like ours.
Or maybe if. they
If
had
I
a
can look at
committee,
other towns just to see.
people said something similar and they struck it from their rules, but it still remains in the charter.
I mean, we could strike it from the rules and just leave the charter, but then I think you do run the risk of someone saying we should do an investigation into whatever, and then we have no path for how that works. But we can take a look and see what else exists, and I can talk to folks here and see, has this ever happened? I just don't know.
Yeah, it would be interesting.
I mean, when I first, I thought it was
Find
weird
out.
when I first read it, I was like, wow, how's that gonna work? But
How this ended up
it
in the
comes-
charter.
it comes from the shoreline.
But like, I mean, and it's not like we can levy charges, can't indict anybody. We don't have,
No.
but what it may be would be to conduct an investigation to make an ironclad case for the, the ex.
But isn't that what
They can't
human
send somebody.
resources do? I mean, the only thing I can think, I'm trying to think of the possible things. If it's criminal, then you go to the police.
Mhm.
And if it's human resources, then you build a case through human resource, the council.
But there's
doesn't
not
do
like,
that.
there's no between us and the town manager, human resources isn't in that picture.
Well,
You know what I mean?
human resources works for the town manager. The town manager works directly for
Right,
us.
so we
And
want.
it's also not necessarily an investigation of an individual, so it says investigate, town agency, so there may be practices or things going on that you want to delve into more deeply. I don't know, I'm a little uncomfortable only because I honestly don't know, I don't have a good example for you.
Well, maybe we'll see what's about.
But, when we're talking about you may get the services of an independent attorney, but who's paying for this independent attorney?
The town council is, that's.
Where's this
that's in
attorney
there.
coming from? I mean, why would we do that?
Well, because it might be awkward for various reasons for my department to be.
Maybe you're the one being investigated.
Maybe. Um,
I
no.
don't know, I just think it's better to have tools in the box than not, because that one particularly has an area.
Yeah, I hope to never get to these sections of the rules. Funds for the employment of an independent attorney shall come from the council's budget. So, yeah, I don't disagree with you, but that's why it's in here.
So what if a
So
committee,
everything I did in here was just intended to just.
what if a committee wouldn't tried to go into executive session when they didn't have standing to do so?
Well, that would be an open
trigger-
meeting law violation. I don't think you need the council to get involved in that.
Because it says all meetings of the council or its committee, this is a investigative committee.
Right.
Shall be held in accordance with the open meeting law. So I'm just saying, would an inquiry or the,
All they're saying is when you guys are meeting, you're subject to the open meeting law, and if you form this investigative committee, that committee is subject to the open meeting.
but I'm concerned, what if one of our standing committees was going rogue and they went into executive session too eagerly without the reservations to respect the prescription for going into executive session. If somebody found fault with that, is that what would trigger an inquiry?
I would think not, because I would think someone would call me.
Right.
And I would do something.
I'm just trying to figure out.
And there are provisions in the law for intentional violations of the open meeting law. There are penalties.
That's what I'm saying. I wish we would have a clear example of
Yeah, I
what
was
this
trying to
would be
figure
used
out how it
for.
would be used. I mean, what
Yeah,
would trigger-
I would have to see if it has been used. I just don't know. You're having the same reaction I did the first time I read it, which was, whoa, what is that? I don't have an answer for you.
Well, I would ask, I don't know, Chris, if you guys could come back with maybe an example, any kind of rationale. I know it's in the charter,
Yeah,
but still,
Yeah,
what possible motivation?
yeah, I mean, we can look into it. and
If it's
see
not criminal, if it's not open meeting law, what is it?
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would be either of those things.
So what is it?
Censure in misconduct.
Having a discussion outside your purview.
all legislative bodies have a mechanism for.
But then we're going back to ourselves. This isn't for
Right.
ourselves.
No,
This
it's not for
is
the council.
Not for the
external,
council.
I'm saying.
It's really not the council, no.
It does say specifically not the council.
Well, it says the town council may require any town officer or member of the board or commission to appear before it. So I guess in theory, it could be another counselor. Well, the town officers. I mean, it has the potential to be a big mess. It really does.
Some of the people who made the charter are still around. That might be-
We have the, the
We could ask
verbatim,
them. Should I call a couple of them, Cindy, and call Chapel Park?
Yeah, I mean, I can.
was it Mike Daly? He's still around. He's alive and kicking.
See what their motivation.
Greg Mill
was.
might be more than happy to come.
Yeah, there you go.
But,
Sorry.
I mean, it would, we'll just see what, see what they, see what you find out. See if it's commonplace. I'm sure it will pass the muster of the general laws.
Yeah, we'll look into it a little
Yeah,
further.
if you look at East Long Meadow, they have something very similar. It's, Rule 14, inquiries and investigations. So it's just something like that, we don't need to read it today.
And, maybe I can reach out on the MMLA
Let's
listserv to
see
see what other folks, other town councils.
Maybe
thoughts
talk to
are.
East Long
And
Meadow.
actually,
That's what it
well,
is.
East Long Meadow sounds like it would leave a copy from us, or at least like it is, because the verbiage is very
Yeah, there are a
similar.
couple of times where you see that and other, and you're like, who got there first? I don't know.
A lot of the verbiage is exactly the same.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, when they were talking about the legislative versus
Quasi.
quasi judicial,
Yeah.
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah, so we can look into that. And after that section, I just added a little language just to explain that certain items require public hearings. Thought that would just be helpful to have in the rules and the agenda items. Because we have the first and second read, certain items, public hearings. And then I added a section on suspension of the rules. Since we do it, I think there should be something that corresponds to that. So that's that.
Cindy, do you have any comments for us? I mean, you've been around and know how this works.
Do you recall any investigations or inquiries under?
Not in the 13 years I've been here. Yeah, no, the only thing I could think of is something, the town manager did something egregious because that's your employee, so you do an internal investigation, but then or the administrator did something egregious. I don't know what you would investigate.
The only one I remember was so long ago was the Board of Select. That dude was a K-9. A lot of fights. They had an investigation.
Being encouraged to bite or
Well, it was allowed to.
allowed to?
It's disturbance of the K-9. Board of Select, some people, one was, Board of Select was outraged. They brought the dog.
Police,
Did you find anybody?
police. And what did the dog say?
The dog?
Yeah, he
Felt it was just.
Dog and bone.
Chose to remain silent.
But I guess that's one thing. I mean, say there was some kind of hot button thing that happened, or some kind of very unpleasant event like happening in different parts of the country right now. And then just people are like, you guys need to look into this. Because what's going on? Was it, you know what I mean? Like say it was a policing issue.
Yeah.
Say it was some kind of cultural thing. say it was some kind of whatever, hate crime, whatever, you name it, pick your poison today. And then they say, well, that town's not doing anything, look at those people. And then we would say, well, listen, we're gonna do an investigation into the culture of the police department, into this, whatever.
Or
this
maybe
thing.
just an inquiry.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Or just
A lower level.
But you know what I mean, like that may be outside of what would be, something you would expect, but it's definitely, possible.
Perhaps did anything like this happen in Brockton?
I
mean, on this level.
On a weekly basis.
I mean,
I mean, at the council level.
yeah, I mean, if you're thinking of budgetary concerns that have happened in recent years, I mean,
But
those
like
things,
investigations conducted by the.
I don't think it's official, but I mean, I think that, and to go along with what Councilor Burt was just saying, it's like an escalation. It's like, this department's not handling this issue the way we'd like them to. Human resources isn't handling this situation the way that is working. So it's this escalation of let's go to town council, because that's the tippity top, right? I mean,
Right, put the light on it and get it out in public.
Well,
it's
who
a
did
fact
they,
finding.
what was the town that exceeded their school budget by 14 million or
That was
something?
That was
18
Brockton.
million.
That was, and who investigated that?
Several different departments that I actually don't know that I would be able to talk about it.
Oh.
Because of attorney-client.
But I mean, what you've just said, that to me is the most plausible.
Yeah,
This is some sort of general outrage about,
Right, and we would go and use that as a mechanism, rather than being
but
like
still,
McCarthyism. and
this
like, I'm gonna get
just
you, Mr.
seems
Standish.
completely a kangaroo court to me, where there's no legal
Yeah, I
standing whatsoever, and you could just be attacked.
Well, yeah, but legal standing, it's not like there's anything you can do at the end of the investigation, other than say, maybe we believe that the following things have
But you're
occurred.
subpoenaing people and
Right,
hiring.
it's probably in the general laws, if it's in there, I mean, it's something that we can, because there's a legislative body, Congress can subpoena people all the time, and people tell them, you know what, I'm not coming, and then they say, okay, well, you'll be in contempt of Congress, all right, I'll see you in court in 3 years. I mean. you
Well,
know what I
when the
mean?
dog came, did the dog's handler, did they just?
Oh, yeah, there was a whole full hearing type of thing.
Did anyone say anything?
Oh, yeah. People testified, and, there was, again, we're talking 30 years. Memories. But there was a full-blown hearing type of situation where the selectmen questioned the chief of police and the K-9 handler, situation, a bar, and it's a big brawl, disturbance, and that's interesting. Dog running type of thing.
And naturally, if they were built, that would be a constitutional violation on the victim's end of things, or whoever was bit. But internally, obviously, they thought it required something, an investigation, an inquiry. There was something they wanted to address.
But this
Right.
one, I guess I'm here for, this would not supersede legal action. I mean, if somebody felt they were wronged by the town or something,
Sure.
this investigation would have nothing to do with their ability to.
No, this is
Great.
an internal.
This is internal.
Yeah, and so I think you would typically, if you were gonna do any of this, you would start with the inquiry. You would say, we want to get more information on something. And that's what I think the inquiry part of this is simply asking for information from whoever it is that they're looking for. And if it's something that's under the town manager's authority, you would go through the town manager. And then you would get the information, and you would either be satisfied with what you got or you wouldn't be. And if you weren't satisfied, then at least in theory, you could consider whether an investigation was warranted. How that would actually play out, honestly,
Change the subject a little bit. One of the ones I ran across in North Attleboro, they're talking about the rules of attendance, and there are no rules of attendance. Basically, so
Right.
we had an incident where we weren't sure who was coming to meeting for an issue, which had come up before. And North Attleboro requires a member who reasonably does not expect to be able to attend the meeting to notify the president. It's possible before, we don't have anything like that. And I think it's just a situation, if you don't show up, you don't show up, but we should have something like that. Conduct on the council.
Yeah, I think that's not a bad idea. I think people generally do that, or they notify Cindy, but I don't think we have a rule about it.
It's not
I do
written
think it
anywhere, it's
happens.
just knowledge from prior leadership have always said to the council members, if you can't attend, please let the administrator know so that, you know, we don't have 5 people showing up and we don't have
Well,
4.
Right, we
Yeah,
know
if,
it is.
yeah, if we're gonna have too many people, then we should know that ahead of time.
But I think it would be good, I agree with Craig that
Mhm.
we ought to put
We
this,
should
I think
formalize
we're at the
that.
point now where we're starting to add, right?
Sounds about
Gone
right.
through everything.
Yeah.
And to add things that we think are deficient, and I agree, I think we're deficient in that area.
Yeah, we can add that.
But then what do you do? if nobody doesn't come?
Well, there really isn't anything, but you're setting an expectation.
There's an expectation, if you will, and it's
You're right, you
It's
can't
everybody's
take
opinion.
any action, but it's a courtesy and it actually impacts everyone showing up for the meeting if in fact we don't have a forum. So, you know, I mean, I think there are definitely things for the counselors where if they don't do it, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But when you set it out as a rule, then you're setting that expectation.
Fine. Cool. Well, that's what I mean. I just always think, what's the point of making a rule if you don't have to follow? I mean, it would be a courtesy anyway, if you just call. It's like,
I think it brings it to the forefront. People may think, well, I really should call, or if I'm going to be late, you know, that situation with 2 counselors, for valid reasons, came in late. Have a quorum issue, so they-
Right.
If we knew that they were going to be late, we could deal with that, but everybody's frantically trying to get in touch with counselors to kind of discover it.
Our last, was that the last one?
No,
Or
it was-
August?
No, the last one was a different issue.
No. What is
Well, I think also in that section, we could codify the remote participation. I think that ought to be put in there clearly.
I think the remote participation thing is. I mean, it's good intention, definitely, but it gives so many opportunities for something to go. We have one instance of that already. It's only been-
Well, maybe there should be something that, you know, technology, some sort of website. Technology.
And Cambridge does remote participation, maybe look at their rules, and see what they, because they do it all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Lynn should be here to speak to those issues. So we do have the policy that was voted. It seems like we haven't been using it all that much, which.
Karen,
Not
do
that bad.
Karen, do we have to wait for the state to make their judgment after March 25th of
Because they could
2025?
not extend it
They'll extend it.
forever.
Well, they should actually draft something that it's much easier. to just-
And I think it would also be helpful, I mean, there's been instances, I know, I was sick and I couldn't physically come in, but I could have participated from home. I remember Gordon had knee surgery. There's been instances where people have had legitimate medical, but they could, from home, they could have participated. So I think it's very valuable. Things happen where people can't, come in for, very valid reasons. I use it because my work kept me in Dallas. I thought it worked very well. And I think it's important to try to come in at the beginning of the meeting,
So here's what Franklin says about it. Remote participation shall be available to 4 members per meeting on a first come, first served basis, rather than minimum form of 5 members will be physically present. So we may say 7 members.
That's
I
nice.
think
Again,
that's
that's,
what our policy actually says. I'd have to go back and look
yeah,
at
that's
what we
very
actually.
clear. I like that word. It's very specific.
And if technical problems interrupt remote participation, the chair will wait up to 5 minutes to allow the reconnection prior to resuming the meeting. If the member is disconnected, the fact and time shall be numbered in minutes. If the party reconnects, the fact and time should be numbered.
Yeah, I need to pull back up what we actually voted.
Yeah, I think it's important to, we do live in this technological age. And I think it's a valid way to do it. I mean, we do have participation from the public remotely. That's, a lot of people really like that. And a lot more people than we think watch these meetings, and they're watching them remotely. So we live in that kind of technology, and I think we ought to make rules that would make it possible to use that to the extent we can.
Well, we certainly do it for the public, because, we're doing it. And again, these are the town council rules for, well, it's the conduct of the meetings.
Yeah.
How do you envision sharing this with the rest of the councilors
Well,
with the justification for the changes we're suggesting? I mean, there's a big document.
I hadn't thought about it because I wasn't sure we were there yet.
Oh, I don't think we are.
No, I know we're not there yet, but I'm just,
I mean, I think what we would probably have to do is provide the current rules with a red line showing what's different. And then some type of memo that would call out, maybe not every single change, but, what the general idea was for certain of the changes that were made. But we have to read it.
And then we should have a special town council to talk
I think that would be appropriate. I mean, look at the amount of time we've spent.
about. Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I
where
think it
was
would be
getting at.
appropriate to have a special meeting just to do this, Chris. I
Because
think
I'm saying
there's
it's a
enough changes
body
in
of
here
work. Yeah.
and to explain, and then now that we're gonna be adding some things too.
And you don't want it to be perceived as a rushed thing, or have it be on,
there'll be a significant amount of commentary. I'm
and
sure
have it
of
be
that.
on a
No,
regular meeting where there's gonna be a long
Where
public
there's other
comment.
stuff, I'm all for streamlining agendas, so that you can spend enough time on a thing and not have me, or for me personally, get frustrated and just want to be able to focus on something that we need to talk about and not have it sandwiched in all this other stuff where you lose, dissolution of what you're trying to do, but yeah, that can be talked about later. But it would be nice, one meeting, everybody can have their say. Really guarantee we won't have heard.
Yeah, I mean, I think there would have to be an accompanying memo that really sort of says, here's what we tried to do, here are some of the changes we made, here's what the goal was.
Or else the meeting will be 8 hours.
It still could be.
But I think, like you did here, where you have a clean copy,
Mhm.
and then you have the other copy. And just go over it. And discussion.
And have it circulated well ahead of time.
Yep.
With justification.
Right.
With the expectation that people will read it, will have an understanding of the.
Yeah, I mean, I think what'll end up happening is we're gonna have to like go through the document, right? And that's what I would anticipate.
I think we would have to, absolutely.
But I mean, the new clean copy, I think is the most important one. And let them read that. If they have issues with the changes. Certainly
Yeah, I mean,
quantify the
when we get
change.
to the point, you would have the existing rules, the red line showing changes, and then a clean version of the changed document. So
Right.
you would have 3 documents.
Yes.
That's what I would do.
And is there a way to elicit comment, yes, through you, from any of the other councilors, so we don't trip a quorum?
What would we do at a
Sleep
meeting?
meeting.
I didn't know.
Yeah, I
I would do it at a meeting because I don't want to start negotiating
No,
with individual counselors.
I see.
So that's for you
Never
guys to
end.
talk to each other. What you would do is say, the committee is recommending this,
Mhm.
you know, and then that would be.
And obviously it's subject to amendment by the council, like, it's their rules.
Right.
If they don't like something, they can change.
But I would at least want to produce a document that the committee's happy with,
Yeah.
obviously.
So do we want to come next time, Chris, with our additions, just like Craig started doing here? I mean, with what we've pulled from the others?
And with the,
Would you guys have a list of them at currently? Meaning, you guys ready to? just
I'm not
let-
ready. I mean,
No,
I've read a
I-
lot of them, but I'd like to now see where we are with this, now that we've gone through it entirely.
Yeah.
And I now want to start folding in, some of the things that I've seen in the others.
Right, because trying to work from the red line copy and get it in your head.
Mm.
This-
Yeah, this
thank you-
is-
thank
this
you
is
for-
good,
thank you
yeah.
for this, that
Yeah,
now we go back and reread this and start doing things
now that
perhaps.
it's
So,
clean.
so in terms of, okay, so on page 11, I'm going to delete the word full from the full council that we talked about. And then that's where we kind of start.
Yeah,
And then on page, then for rule 11C, we'll play around with the liaisons and come up with some other language. And for inquiries and investigations, we'll see what we can figure out. And I'll change the gender thing under inquiries. And then, yeah, I guess, oh, and the notifying the president if you can't attend. the meeting, like that. You know, we'll take another look at some of the other towns, but I guess at this point, I'm really more interested to hear from all of you as to what makes sense to
Right.
you.
I don't think we should hamstrap, the liaisons too much as it is, the volunteers for the most part. I don't know if you want to make it too rigid with what they can, shouldn't do, or when they can talk and when they can't. If there's a dialogue and they're asked to engage.
I mean, I think if the chair is asking you, that should be okay.
Sure.
What I wouldn't want is necessarily you injecting yourself into the
Yes.
business of the committee, but if
Crying
they're
out.
seeking your thoughts on something, then
right.
that's different.
Okay, you watch this.
No, just-
But it also may go to, like I gave you the example that another town councilor came to this committee, I was a liaison, and made another forceful statement at the matter at hand.
Mhm.
So maybe we have to address that in the rules. As a town councilor, you still have the ability to public comment. Can't you remove yourself? You can come, I think, and comment on anything
Mhm.
or not. I mean, I don't know if we need to clarify that at all.
Yeah, I think councilors can show up and
And
comment.
comment on anything.
They've got free speech.
Yeah.
As long as they make clear they're not representing the council. We see that all the time. People come to
Yeah.
these committees.
Right, you're commenting.
They make
your
it clear
individual
that they're
capacity.
commenting as an individual.
Yeah,
Correct. So, yeah, we'll come up with something and then you all can react to it.
Yeah.
See what you think.
but then a liaison should have that right as well.
I agree.
What I'm saying is,
I
you know,
agree with that. I
yeah,
don't think you should be in a lesser position than every other councilor.
It's as simple as that, as you said, shall be a member of the public.
yeah,
If I were the chair of any committee, I can recognize whoever I want. You have to say, Mr. And if you're a member of the public, you speak in public comment, or you don't, you speak directly. But sitting in the audience and shouting out at someone in a public meeting, which I've seen happen. Not so much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I mean, if the public has the chance to speak, then you
Yes,
should
then
have
they
that
should be
same
able to
chance
speak.
to speak.
We might get sued for trying to violate somebody's First Amendment rights in traditional public forum. So there's that,
You've been reading up on all your stuff.
always. No question. But so quick question for you guys, because I don't necessarily have a list of things that I want to add at are you guys gonna prepare and circulate for the next meeting of list, or do you wanna
You
hash
can't,
them
you
out?
you can't.
Well,
You can't circulate because then you're talking to each other
But
outside the
if
meeting.
it was, Betty sends us a thing, no one responds.
No.
You send a thing, no one responds.
I can talk to all of you
You
because
send
I'm not a
them.
committee member,
Yes.
but I'm not gonna say, Betty sent me this and here you
Right.
go. Like, you can't talk to each other outside of the meeting.
I don't think there's gonna be enormous amount. I
Yeah, I
think
don't
know
there's
either.
gonna be some,
Because I wouldn't go crazy. I mean, the
No,
rules are
no.
basically pretty good, and if there's some stuff we can add to make them better, I think that's fine, but I wouldn't like add 20 more pages. I just think it's gonna be a document no one
Yeah.
will ever look at then.
right.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I just, for the sake of brevity, I didn't know how much you guys had in mind, so I was wondering how we can get it through you.
I mean, if you want to
Yeah,
send me
go.
stuff, that's fine, but don't send it to each
Right.
other. But I'm fine with that if you want to do that ahead of time. If you want me to look at it. It's up to you.
I'm glad that you renamed and reorganized the layout. It makes a little more sense.
Yeah, and if you take a look at this, especially the clean version, which I didn't really go through, I just wanted to make sure we had one. If you see things or you think it could be organized better, let me know, we can change it. But don't talk to each other.
I never do.
So when are we meeting again?
Define what's, what's a judicial.
I don't think that is.
Then he has to tell us when the rules are available.
Still have some improvement minutes.
I am also on vacation the next 2 weeks, so. After that. Yeah, I'm back on the 11th. I actually need to do the 10th meeting remotely.
Well, that's not really fair because how, Allison, you're gonna be doing the bulk of this? Because we've given you guys quite a bit to do, and if you're on vacation, that's not really appropriate to.
We'll get it done.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, if you want to meet in the next 2 weeks, that's probably not gonna work.
I don't think we want to meet in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right, so probably the 14th on,
The 14th?
probably the 14th, anyway, from the 14th on, maybe the 15th. The Tuesday seems to work.
Tuesdays are generally good.
That's like literally right when I get back.
And I actually get back.
And you're on
The week
vacation.
after.
22nd?
Yeah, I would definitely push it to either the week after or the last week in October. I know this committee is supposed to end on the 31st. I don't know what you all are doing about that. But we're actually getting a lot done, so.
I think we're very close.
You're
Yeah.
getting.
So the 22nd, is that the Tuesday, Friday?
The only reason I don't like that is that's a town council meeting week, which usually sets up my time.
All right, 29th?
Can we do that? That would work.
29th? That gives plenty of time for everybody
Yeah, if
to
you get me stuff.
come up with your stuff and be very concise about it.
So October 29th at 5:30?
Would that work?
And I think Tuesdays are good for Kristen, right?
Yes.
I think for her patience.
Yeah, we, all our meetings
Yeah.
are on Tuesday, so.
Thank you for accommodating me. That's why the October 10th council meeting, I need to do that remotely. So it's tough.
Are we just gonna push everything back from the meeting? We couldn't just, we're
Yeah,
not doing anything
we're
special.
re-advertising the public hearings that were supposed to take place last week. So we're re-advertising those. We just made it in terms of the time frame. So those will take place on the 10th. You'll take the vote on the 10th that you would have taken at the last week's meeting. The only other one was the CPC item that would have been a first read. So that's gonna have to start over. It'll be a first read on the 10th and then a public hearing on the 20th. Stuff we can just move. Yeah. We couldn't have had the meeting.
All right, then, do you want to accept the minutes? There's one correction. The spelling of it.
Yeah, I'll fix that for you.
And, right. This correction that Cindy said is probably,
I'm gonna work Jeremy, this is still not me. Not me,
these are
those are your
other
minutes.
minutes, right?
Yeah.
The beginning of it,
If it's in the spelling of the document of the old town council rules, then that's just the way they were printed.
No, I
And
think it's a typo on the word Amherst.
that one, no, she's not talking about
I
Amherst.
think this is procedure.
What?
We're talking about Masons and Roberts, and then Peter.
So it's legislative, I think it's procedure.
That's what it
Right,
says.
so the name is wrong.
So wherever this emanated from, I'm just saying that's part of the minute.
Yeah, I'm gonna fix the
Yeah, so
Amherst
yeah,
spelling.
that's correct up here, Mason's manual. Hold on. Rules, Mason's manual,
This-
that's wrong, yeah.
You want this? Yeah, a copy. Because, Karen just, yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's weird.
Okay, now the actual one.
Yeah. With a comment, maybe you accidentally.
All right, so do we want to postpone a minute or?
You can just do as amended.
Yeah.
It's just a couple of spellings and 2 apostrophes.
Yes, typos.
No, it's just that.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended, as corrected.
Second?
All those in favor?
I understand, I wasn't there.
Well, I wasn't there, but,
You
I
watched
did
the
read
video?
them, and I watched the video.
That's fine, it's up to you whether you want to abstain.
I didn't.
Motion to adjourn.
I love playing with this chick.
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Okay.
It's so fun.
All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.